Morning. Good morning to all, and a good afternoon to you, Ambassador in Tokyo. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. We are here for a series that we do on the India-Japan partnership. And this is a series that we hold very dear, and it talks of our commitment to our relationship with Japan. We have a long and close engagement with Japan. Our track to dialogue with Japan was initiated way back in 2006, initially as a trilateral with USA, Japan, and India, long before actually the government started the trilateral. So we feel very proud we were the initiators of this trilateral between three amazing countries. Recognizing the strategic potential for expanding the bilateral cooperation on economic opportunities, regional and global challenges, and shared values, the Japan-India strategic dialogue evolved in 2013. And the last dialogue was held virtually even during the COVID times. This series on India-Japan partnership perspectives, held with the support of the Nippon Foundation, is a key initiative to explore the many contours of the essential partnership between our two vibrant democracies. Our work on Japan has been very extensive, including public sessions, closed-door roundtables, and convening visits of parliamentarians to Japan to develop greater understanding and cooperation between India and Japanese policymakers. I am truly delighted to welcome Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Varma, our ambassador to Japan. A very warm welcome to you, Ambassador. Thank you very much for taking time out to address this session and for your continued support and guidance towards all our work. I know we love the support we get from you, but I know it also creates a lot of extra work for you and your team, but we truly appreciate it. I would also like to welcome our board member, a Kamal Nayan Bajaj Fellow, a Government of India nominated CEO of this session for us, Rajan. Thank you so much for doing this. We look forward to what I'm sure will be a very interesting and insightful conversation.
Thanks, Kiran. So very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and let me also add my warm welcome to Ambassador Varma. He, as Kiran said, is being, it's always very ready to support Ananta, support Aspen, passionately talk about technology, and I don't think we could have had a better person to have a conversation on such an important subject. A subject that I think has grown exponentially, through this pandemic. The digital partnership, digital as a whole has been literally on fire, and we are seeing that through, this event that we are having and many such interactions that are going on around the world, the methods by way of which companies are enabling digital to get people to work from home. Businesses are changing, contactless experiences with consumers. So it's a very exciting subject and also an opportunity for us to really talk about, co-creation and co-innovation between India and Japan as a part of this digital partnership. I think Japan and India have been Asia's two most vibrant democracies. We share a very warm relationship, and these have been really founded on several years of pillars of mutual interest, shared universal values, and therefore I think the strengthening of this strategic partnership, especially at a time when there is geopolitical stress, there's international uncertainty, is extremely important. I think we've been hearing a lot about digital at the workplace, digital IoT, Industry 4.0, but I think eventually it is really about us as a society moving closer to being one which is completely digitally connected. And I think Japan's initiative on Society 5.0 is a great example of how society will really be shaped in the future using digital. And I think, therefore, the topics that we will try and cover today would vary from startups to AI to IoT to what is the direction for growth, what could be the strengths that India brings, what are the strengths that Japan brings, and most importantly, what can India and Japan do together for the world? Is there an opportunity for us to therefore engage with other countries and really see what can be built out of this wonderful partnership? As stepping stones, a memorandum of cooperation on the India-Japan digital partnership was first signed during the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Japan in Tokyo on 29th of October 2018. There has been an ICT digital partnership which has been signed as recently as 15th of January this year. And there is another very interesting document that will be signed sometime soon, which will also enable movement of people, skills, etc., which will address, again, the growth and proliferation of digital activity and services across our two countries. So there is a lot of work that the government has been doing. I think private industry has also started to extensively engage with Japan. For us, we've had a working relationship with Japan for over 35 years through our businesses in Thailand and other places. But I think the peak of our relationship or our work is actually happening now in UAE. So I think this is the right time for private industry, for government to government and societies between our two countries to really come together and see what this opportunity can mean, when we talk of co-creating and co-innovating. But I want to also add one term to that, which is co-producing or co-production. And, all these three terms, our Honorable Ambassador Varma has been using extensively now for a long time, mentioning that co-creation, co-innovation, and co-production is really the way and the future for what India and Japan can be. And I think that really sets the tone for the kind of speaker we have here today. He is someone who has, been in the MEA for, of course, a long time. Prior to coming to Japan, he was the additional secretary and also in charge of the cyber diplomacy division in Delhi. He has served as the Consul General of India in Milan, Italy, and was also the Indian ambassador to the Republic of Sudan. So, and he comes with, as I said, tremendous passion for technology, as you will, hear through this conversation. The way we're going to structure today's conversation is I will request the Honorable Ambassador to give some opening remarks, post which, we will take some subjects which might be of mutual interest for us to explore deeper. And towards the end of the session, we'd love to, take on questions that have been thrown up by the audience. So I would request each one of you to kindly start posting your questions in the Q&A box. And, as we are building the conversation and the discussion, we'd love to see how we can bring most of you in and most of your thoughts also, so that we can have a much richer outcome that is, again, co-created by all of us together rather than just the ambassador and myself. So in that spirit, welcome again, Ambassador, and really a joy and pleasure to have you with us. And I'd love to hear your opening remarks for this morning's session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navani. Kiranji, to have introduced me. First of all, let me commend Ananta Aspen for organizing this series. And this is the first in the series where we will be discussing largely the digital partnership. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to sum up the things in the beginning, and thereafter I'll respond to the queries so that it is more contextual from your interest point of view. When you look at India-Japan relationship, then we are largely focusing on one particular phrase, which says spatial, strategic, and global partnership. When we say strategic, we can debate whether digital is a part of strategic or not. But today, if you look at different trade disputes, different trade tensions which are going all over the world, you'll realize that digital is very much a part of the geopolitics and therefore strategy. Global partnership, as Mr. Navani rightly said, that it is not only what India can give to Japan, what Japan can give to India, but also what both of them can do together when it comes to the larger world and, of course, to our own neighborhood in South Asia. The complementarities are to be focused upon, and we have a huge lot of complementarities between our two countries, and therefore there is a large potential to take those complementarities forward and therefore contribute to the growing bilateral relationship. As far as Japan is concerned, their Bank for Industrial Cooperation, which is JBIC, which is known as Japan Bank for International Cooperation, that has rated India continuously, successively, as the best destination for their foreign direct investment, which includes startups. The three terms which were just introduced by Mr. Nawani, they do say a lot. When we talk of India, Japan, I talk of partnership. We do not talk of quid pro quo. So when we talk of partnership, then we talk of co-innovation, because both the societies have different kinds of issues to face and different ambitions, therefore different expectations. There may be similar solutions, but the very concepts are different, and therefore the two countries need to co-innovate amongst the domain experts of that particular area. Once you have co-innovated, then the solutions go back to the concerned societies. In this case, between India and Japan, it might even go to a third country. So that is the co-creation. That is how we are co-creating a value in the relationship. Once it has crossed that hurdle, then of course the industries will come online and they will start co-producing. We hope that there will be joint ventures of Indian and Japanese businesses, and therefore I'm talking about the co-production. So you have three phases: co-innovation, co-creation, and co-production, in that order, to take the bilateral relation forward, not only to the lands of India and Japan, but also globally. If you look at another dimension which has really impacted the two countries and the region, which is the supply chain. Now, the entire region is facing a supply chain diversification issue. Their digital platform plays a huge role in such diversification, and India being both large market and a place which is strongly recommended by JBIC for foreign direct investment to be there to take it forward. I would not talk about the startup ecosystem in India. It is the third largest. All of you know it very well, so I'll skip that part of introduction. But then what we'll add is that Japan-India Startup Initiative was already taking shape in the year 2018. And in May 2018, a joint statement on this issue was issued, which led to setting up of Japan-India Startup Hub in Bengaluru. And that's on the virtual mode, and it does help a lot of Indian startups to look for Japanese partners. And I'm using the word partners. I'm not using the word investors with due respect. So Indian startups looking for Japanese partners in management and finance, in technology, in marketing channels, whatever it is. And similarly, the Japanese startup ecosystem looking for Indians. The India-Japan digital partnership, which was mentioned by Mr. Nawani in his remarks, was signed in October 2018. It has various pillars, and one of the pillars is actually startup initiative, and that is where we go. Just to give you a little bit of roundup, there are close to about 80 information technology companies from India, not only Indian company, but from India, invested in Japan. And there are close to 23 Japanese IT companies which have got development centers in India. And they do generate a huge number of jobs for Indian professionals, close to about 60,000. These all are development centers, and a few of them have got their global development centers in India. So that is the type of dependence, or I would say intermingling, that the two startup ecosystems and two technology systems have brought together. If you look at the recent news, you will find Tech Mahindra signing up with Rakuten in 5G Open RAN. If you look at another one wherein for automotive industry, Tech Mahindra signed an agreement with Sumitomo Corporation. Then you have TCS and University of Tokyo signing another digital drive, which is basically for the innovation. If you look at Japanese involvement in the Indian startup ecosystem, it had been very much there for quite some time. If you look at the largest one from the funding point of view, that is SoftBank. SoftBank since 2011 have been investing in Indian startup ecosystem, and as per the figures available with us, they have invested in 25 Indian startups, close to $10 billion US. So they are the largest by far. The total amount of financial investment which has gone from Japan to India in the startup ecosystem is close to about $15 billion. Other than SoftBank, you have Dream Incubators, which have invested into 23 startups, Redbright, 17 startups, Incubate Fund India, 6 startups, UTech, which is the University of Tokyo Edge Capital Fund, in 3 startups, Denso, Tokyo, Shusho, Global Brain. So you have a number of them investing in Indian startups, understanding the capability of the Indian startup to be very sort of fast, have very fast turn back time, and then take it forward from there. There is another development which I thought I'll share with you. There is a fund of funds which has been created. This is a business, this is a private fund, this is a B2b fund, in which $187 million is expected to be raised, out of which $100 million has been raised. And out of these $100 million, 2 Indian VCs have already been chosen to invest these over an entire canvas and landscape of Indian startups. We are targeting 200 Indian startups through this fund. But once again, since this is a private fund operated by the businesses, so they will take the calls as to where and which sectors to put these funds in. Fintech has got a lot of potential in Japan, and therefore those startups which are engaged in fintech could start looking at Japan for their partnerships. If you look at agri-value chain and food processing industry, any startup in that segment, whether technical or non-technical, would also find Japan to be very welcoming of their proposals and take these things forward. You have manufacturing sector, which is both manufacturing and automotive. That is another sector where we should focus from the startup point of view. Robotics is yet another sector, and all of you know gray orange and how good it has done in Japan. In fintech, of course, you know Varma and how good, how well it has done in Japan. And lastly, there is the healthcare sector, where the perspectives of India and perspective of Japan may vary, because we are a very young society. Japan is no more that younger society. So healthcare, health tech, and medical tech are another segments where we can look at. And all these would finally be driven by machine learning. They will finally be running through IoT related tools, sensors. A lot of sensor technology will go into it. A lot of neural will go into it. A lot of natural speech processing will go into it. So if you look at it as a whole, a lot of data analytics, data related tools will go into all these technologies. So those startups which are looking at these, please look at Japan. And as an embassy, of course, we'll always be ready to assist you in looking for partners in Japan. What we have done so far, just to give you a very brief example of that, in September 2019, which is pre-COVID period for this region, we invited 26 Indian startups, and this event was held in collaboration with NASSCOM. So 1,500 startups had given their applications, 26 were selected jointly by NASSCOM and us. These 26 startups did travel to Japan. They did a live pitching event, which is very uncommon for startups to do. And I'm glad to share with you that in the hall, $10 billion were raised for 5 of them. So $2 million on average each was raised. There were 120 Japanese VCs and corporate and VC arms of the corporate wings. And of course, the angel investors were also there. And now we have learned that there are 17 of them which have already got the partnership with Japanese VCs, angel VCs, and VC arms of their corporate sectors. Then the COVID hit, and thereafter we had held 7 virtual pitching events of close to about 6 or 7 startups in each. We have done about 47 startups through these virtual pitching events. The first one was known as the first Japan VC Connect. Now we are looking forward to the second Japan VC Connect, which will be 29th of January this year. And again, NASSCOM is a partner there, but this time we will be doing it virtually, and we'll experiment as to where does it take us from there. So startup, we are focusing a lot. Startup, the Japanese companies and Japanese startup ecosystems are focusing a lot on. Cybersecurity and space technologies are the other 2 major areas where I would suggest our startups which are interested in Japan start looking at. So what I'll do is I'll stop here and then I'll wait for the queries, the questions, the conversation which I can have with Mr. Navani, who is a well-known authority in his own domain, which includes digital. So God knows how much can I clarify. Mr. Navani, back to you.
No, thank you, Ambassador. That was, really well covered. You covered so many of the, different areas. There was just one area which I thought is also quite important, I think, in our relationship, and that's really the whole smart cities, the infrastructure play, which I think Japan has been involved with in India. I think it's moved at a different pace at every point in time, but I think the partnership between our 2 countries can really amplify significantly, especially when we talk in terms of the value and the dollar value in which we could work together. Maybe some further thoughts on that to begin with.
Okay, thank you very much. See, in startup domain, yes, India and Japan are collaborating with each other. There are Japan already has its own smart cities, which has slightly different model than the smart cities in India. 5G will form a basis of many of the technologies which will come into smart cities, and all these big companies, Rakuten, NEC, and Sony, and Hitachi, they are already collaborating in the sector of 5G development with Indian startups, with Indian academia, and these technologies, once they mature, they will be piloted in these smart city innovations. As far as the infrastructure itself is concerned, Japan, the 2 governments are talking to each other, and as you know that India is the largest recipient of Japanese ODA in the world. So therefore, we can expect some more growth and development in the smart city pillar between the 2 countries. And the Japanese companies are very much willing to participate in it.
No, I think this whole technology collaboration, or the areas in which India and Japan will collaborate. So let's take 5G for example, right? How do you see really technology playing a key role in the geopolitics, right? Because there is it's a world where we are seeing technology emerging, from different countries, technology trying to become the base for a much larger relationship, that would be built between countries. How do you see, technology, 5G especially, playing that role, in the geopolitics, especially between our 2 countries?
Even before the world started becoming unipolar and then to multipolar again, we had seen the power of IBM. We had seen the power of NASA with its satellites, cartography, and everything else. We had seen the power of Sony in technology. We had seen the power of Panasonic. We had seen the power of LG and Samsung. We have seen now the power of Huawei and ZTE. All these initially caused disruptions because the system was working well, and all of a sudden you have this television coming into the world by a Japanese company, and then you have disruptions in the system. So similarly, the disruptions will keep happening. With each disruption, there will be geopolitical realignment. And what you see today is that technologies have really got to the geopolitical realignments all over the world. What you can, in future, you can see is when we talk of asymmetric responses. So there could be something conventional against which I can respond from in the cyberspace, then the other country can respond in the outer space. So these are asymmetries built in. So when you look at these asymmetric responses, what is finally going to happen is that technologies will drive these asymmetric responses. And therefore, the world will again either go back into its own cocoons, which we have seen with some countries, or it will go all over the world, forming new alignments, forming new alliances in some cases, forming new groups, forming new open societies of countries. So all these things will happen, and therefore technology is not only a big disruptor, but it will also drive to new alignments in the world, in the geopolitical sense.
Yeah, so what's really going to happen is also what you're suggesting. Countries will need to make choices, right? They will align themselves with certain countries on the basis of their choice of technology. Supply chains, right, globally are getting disrupted, and I think for the first time, really in the world, where countries are literally being forced to kind of align around supply chains. Do you really see that happening, particularly with China and with different aspects that are happening around the world right now? How do you if you were to forecast looking a little further ahead, how would you see that shape up?
Supply chain diversification will largely happen on the basis of the kind of investment promotion which a country does, the kind of talent pool that a country has, and the kind of natural resources and market that a country has. It will not just go in the blind. And it becomes that much more complicated due to the cross-border investments which are being made. It will be very difficult to say whether a technology belongs to one country or a company. I would prefer the later one. And therefore, the same company could have technologies deployed and employed in various geographies, and therefore trying to balance its presence in one geography against the other. As far as supply chain diversification is concerned, countries have felt a pinch of not diversifying enough. So yes, there will be diversification of supply chain, where these will be relocation of facilities. I'll have my doubts. But when you go for diversification in this era, the domestic attraction in each of these geographies will also work. For an example, out of 128 Japanese companies which have decided to diversify its supply chain out of China, about 57 are coming back to Japan. Though Japan is a costly manufacturing base, but they are coming back to Japan. Probably logistics will be much easier for them because they are selling it to other Japanese companies. I do not know, and I won't comment on that. But large number of them are coming to their domestic base. Some of them, about 30 of them, are going to Vietnam. Close to about 5 plus 3, say 8 to 10 are coming to India. So each company will have its own strategy chalked out, depending on whether it is a short-term strategy, medium-term strategy, long-term strategy, and whether they already have some integration in the geography where they are targeting to go. On that basis, these companies will move around. India will also get its fair share. That is my belief.
But I think with the trigger, for a lot of that did come from the government of Japan, right? Which incentivized companies to kind of move out of China and do that. Do you see something like that happening from India as well?
When you say incentivizing, actually, if you look at the total amount, it is in a way for industry peanuts. It is close to $2.2 billion. And even if you're looking at, say, 200 companies diversifying, each company is getting hardly anything to diversify. largely it is a political statement which is saying that, look, you know what, government of Japan is okay if you wish to diversify and go to other geographies. The entire thing started with Japan ASEAN Economic Forum. So India was not there at that time. Now, India is also added to the same ecosystem. Recently, the 5 companies which have decided to go to India are getting some sort of incentive, financial incentive, though they do not need, they are all large companies. Financial assistance from or initiative incentives from the Japanese government. But largely, how I will see it, that Japan government is okay if you move out of a certain geography. And that is the biggest incentive, that is the biggest message being conveyed to the corporate sector in Japan, which is extremely important for the domestic economy, but politics as well.
And I think from in India context also, there is this perception, right? Because, there was a little detailed scrutiny on the capital that is coming in from China, or the banning of Chinese apps. So there's this trend even in India, which had kind of started. I don't know, whether these become the basis for a strengthening of a relationship between two countries, like in India and Japan, or, these are choices that, what you rightly said, individual companies are making, individual governments are making, as we are realigning towards a larger, goal, geopolitical future, in the years to come. I mean, any thoughts you might have on that?
Finally, the decisions will be taken by individual companies.
Yeah.
The government cannot push them so far unless it gives them complete funding for relocation / diversification, which I do not see coming anytime sooner. So therefore, these will be company decisions. But if we understand the way in which Japanese do business, and when we talk of Japan-China economic relation, Japanese companies were in China in the manufacturing way back in 1970s, early 1970s. A Japanese company has started looking at India seriously much later, about 2 decades back. So therefore, there is this lag which we need to cater for. But the main Japanese philosophy behind a business of building trust, having timeliness of decisions, having predictability of business. So these are the things which even government of India cannot create. These are to be created by the business partners of these Japanese companies in India. So I will urge all private businesses which are already in partnership with Japanese companies, or they are intending to become partners to the Japanese companies, to understand the Japanese business practices and psychology. So please build trust, which takes a couple of years to build. It cannot be instantaneously. Japan or Japanese businesses do not believe in quick fix, in quick returns, in emails to making the deals. They don't believe in that. It is a much physical society. They want to meet you face to face. They want to judge you as a person. They want to see your factory. So therefore, there are many things which needs to be done, but the best way for our private industry or business sector is to build trust, build predictable environment, build the predictability of the logistics supply chain. If you are able to do these 3, then chances are that the Japanese partner will show its interest in you, not only in financing, but also in technology, management style, and what all you have.
And the relentless focus on quality. I think that, in anything that one does, right from, an interaction to your end product. And I think, I think maybe, that's a great subject for us to go a little deeper on, because ultimately, right, what you rightly said, it's people to people, business to business, that will strengthen, this partnership. There is this cultural difference when it comes to language. And like we've also, as I said, been part of this relationship for a long time. I mean, I literally learned how to write katakana, hiragana, kanji, speak a little bit, just, to be able to build that comfort, right? And that comfort is then, a good communication leads to, deeper trust. And then, of course, at the end of the day, it's how you transact business. But, over the period that you've been in Japan and, some of the experiences you've seen, Would you have some, good tips or, some examples that you feel have stood out, or what can businesses do better when it comes to, the cultural and those aspects of the business relationship? Food,
what I had earlier suggested to CII and other apex chambers is that why don't you have some sort of an expert called in? And there are experts in India, by the way, who are very well entrenched in the Japanese business culture, and give a lecture from time to time on what is Japanese business culture and how do you approach a Japanese company. It's not that only we are approaching, they are also trying to learn what is India. So it is both ways, and how do we sort of bridge the gulf which is there due to the language and due to the culture. I'll give you an example without naming a company. They said that, our cup noodle is so famous in the world, and when we are trying to sell it to India, we are hardly having any offtake. I said, but India is not a noodles country. And that says you enough, I think, what I meant. So therefore, we have to understand what is the need of Japan. Mr. Nawani, as you rightly said, quality. They want the 1 millionth piece that you supply to them of the same quality as the first piece that you supplied or the sample that you showed to them, which unfortunately in many cases is not our strong point, if I can be that blunt. And that is why we lost businesses in some fields, including in marine products and some of the fresh products, where we were supplying a lot to Japan earlier, now we are not. So we have to look at what Japan needs, that is one. Two, how does Japan do business? So many a times, what I find is that people will come here and say that, look, I'm selling you the cheapest. And the Japanese will say, look, I don't want the cheapest product. I want a product which is of quality, which will last for these many years. And if you want 10% more, please take 10% more. That is how this market was built up. So when we were discussing, for an example, say, generic pharmaceuticals, we made the same mistake. We said that, we are the cheapest generic manufacturers in the world. So why don't you buy from us? They said, why don't you price your products at the same level as the international generic products level? We'll buy from you. So the thing is that quality, predictability, logistics, trust building, all these things are important. They are buying steel today, which are more expensive than the Indian steel, but they are buying because they have a long-term relationship with those companies. So that is another thing. With the Japanese companies, if you click once, and if you are not committed any major default, chances are that you'll continue your business relationship with that company, unless that company gets into some difficulty, bankruptcy or anything else.
No, I think that's a very, very strong point. And even, as I said, our experience of many Indian companies that are working in Japan, really exemplify that. And I think it works, both ways. I think I see Indian companies when they're growing global, right, having had a base or a foundation of strong business relationship with Japan, carry that, to the rest of the world when they work with third countries or other countries. And I think that's a great point for us to, deliberate again a little bit upon. See, Prime Minister Modi has launched, the whole Atmanirbhar Bharat, which has followed the Make in India, large initiative, which in a way is saying, messages that, we want to strengthen India, from within India. So maybe with technology coming from everywhere, building India as a strong base for the world, right? Of course, it will cater to India. So somewhere, different countries have interpreted it a little differently. Maybe some have thought that it's more protectionism, is looking inward, especially in these times. Maybe it'll be, good to hear from you as to how the government of India is really looking at this actually being a strength for India to engage better with the rest of the world, and in that context, how Japan and India can, do a lot more together with for other countries.
Again, I can't talk of all the countries because countries are in different stages and phases of growth and development. But a company which is the net exporter of technology, a country which is the net exporter of finance, a country which is the net exporter of management styles, they will find it quite attractive, because in any case they are going out. So if they are going out to a place which not only provides a market, but also provide a base for supply of products to a larger global market at a quality and a price which would be of Japanese standards. So therefore, the Japanese companies are very happy at Atmanirbhar Bharat. We had to do a little bit of canvassing in the beginning, because here again, the same issue was there, that if you are Atmanirbhar, then what do we do? Why do we go and invest in your country? But once they understood the concept that being Atmanirbhar doesn't mean shutting the door for your companies to come into India and use India both as a base and a market for the domestic market, and as a base to supply to third countries at a more profitable basis. So they have understood that, and from Japan, there is no hesitation on Atmanirbhar Bharat.
And I think, as an extension to that is the talent available in India, right? I think India is a younger country, large number of young people getting skilled. In Japan, of course, has had a challenge with a little aging population. And therefore, in light of that, the new agreement that, which will be signed soon, where, of course, there's a partnership between India and Japan, on internship, but then now really moving more to a higher skilled kind of, a workforce, etc. Maybe you can share some thoughts around, how are we as two countries looking at, the people, movement, particularly when it comes to livelihoods, but more importantly, in strengthening what we can do together.
As all of you know, that Japan is aging faster than many parts of the world, including India. India has human resource talent, and that is very well accepted in Japan. We had been discussing something known as a specified skilled workers agreement. And that is being finalized as we talk today. And once it is signed, it will allow Indian skilled workers in close to about 80 sectors of industry to come to Japan as industrial workers and live in Japan. Long-term visa, etc., everything will be available. It goes for 5 years to start with, and then it could be extended, etc. So there are various provisions provided for in the agreement. The need of Japanese language will be there, of course, for which I'm glad to inform to you that in last 5 years, we have increased the total number of students taking exams of Japanese language, which is conducted by Japan in India, from 7,000 every year to 26,000 every year. So therefore, we are creating that basis through which they can come to Japan. Second thing, which is very important, is to provide them some sort of simulation experience. Because if you look at, say, nursing, Japanese equipments are different from Indian equipments. One is not only due to the marks and the language written on them, or the profile which is there, user manual which is there, but also because of the way in which you behave with the people. And therefore, anyone coming here will also need a good lesson on Japanese culture. How do they interact with people? The politeness, the bowing of head, all kinds of stuff. To accept your guilt if you have done something wrong. So everything comes as a package. So what will be done under this in India, which is partly being done under TITP, which is the internship program, is that every candidate will be exposed to the language, to the technical skill, to the application of the technical skill in Japan, and to the cultural aspect of living in Japan. Only then that person will become a roving ambassador of India in Japan and add value to the India-Japan bilateral relationship.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, a lot of that, movement happening, and particularly, I think we can very often identify, and I know, with a lot of my Japanese friends and all, and even vice versa, you're a great ambassador of India in Japan, right? People who have adapted to the Indian culture, who have, experienced different aspects of India, And you know, that spreads across, right from yoga to the food to tons of different aspects that even India brings, you know, and vice versa. You know, there are great examples of Japanese people who we would call, you know, great ambassadors, you know, of Japan, you know, of India and Japan, and Indians who are, you know, the other way around, right? Ambassadors of Japan and India. And I think strengthening and building that is definitely one strong pillar, you know, for our relationship. I'm going to now, you know, move to the Q&A part, because we've received, Ambassador, quite a few questions, and you know, I'll try and pick a few, and you know, we have about 15 minutes. We'll try and, you know, go through some of them. You know, there's a question from Tomohiko Taniguchi, who has worked with Prime Minister Abe, and I think his question is really, how could we do more to bring our science research universities and institutions in India and Japan even closer? You know, what is missing in strengthening that?
Would like me to respond to each question or a cluster?
Or maybe I can take 2 or 3. Should I do that? Would you prefer that? Yeah, I'll take 3 questions then maybe. Yeah. Then the second question is really, while alternative supply chains move from Japanese companies with intervention from Japanese government is on, does the move from India has not really been as much, right? Can you throw some light on this? I know we discussed it briefly, but maybe you can, you know, expand a little bit on that. And the third question really is about from Taniguchi only on defense technology and manufacturing cooperation. You know, we have to still walk the talk. What should we do to have a breakthrough in that space? So maybe these 3 questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nawani. Taniguchi-san himself is a big architect of India-Japan relationship. To those who do not know, he was not only advisor to former Prime Minister Abe, but he is also behind the genesis of free and open Indo-Pacific. So Taniguchi-san, namaskar, konnichiwa. As far as science and research collaboration is concerned, we need to have more exchanges. Simple. It doesn't matter how much soever government talk about it. It has to be based on the research organizations, the academic organization, to exchange their researchers, professors, and students. Language is a hurdle, but in Japan, there are enough number of scientists and researchers who do good research using English as the second language. So probably that could be used. Or if some startup who would be listening to us can develop a real-time translation software or interface, that could go a long way in developing such kind of science and research interface between the 2 countries. There are a lot of things which are happening. About 22 CSIR labs have their counterpart labs in Japan. There are 8 dye labs, which are high technology, high-tech labs from Japan and India. IIT Hyderabad has got a lot of Japanese DNA into it. There are JIMs from Japan and India, which is training them on the methodology, training us, that is Indians, on the methodology. So there is a lot of things which is happening, but it needs to be upscaled on the basis of giving a push to the academic institutions and organizations to tie up with each other. Many of these researchers know each other from various conferences that they attend together in 3rd countries. They can come back and do it. To give you an example, recently we held 2 seminars which were high-tech, both online. One was on nanotechnology, another was on quantum technology. And in both, we got more than 200 scientists participating from both sides, which says a lot. And the kind of discussion which was there could beat any of the scientific symposia which takes place in any part of the world. So we will need to take to the new tools. We'll need to make new collaborative platforms and walk the talk. On the supply chain diversification, why not India? India has been named a couple of times, but yes, it has not been named as many times as ASEAN. reason partly to me, again, no one has told me this, but reason partly to me, it seems like Japan has a lot of supply chain, either at the initiating level or finishing level or mid-level, located in ASEAN. And therefore, there is more rush to go to ASEAN, particularly to Vietnam. Recently, we have seen a large number of companies, including digital companies, going to Vietnam in supply chain diversification process. But India is very much there, and as I told earlier, that eight of Japanese companies that we know of, others may still be discussing their investment or reinvestment into India, which we do not know of, but 8 instances we know of since the beginning of COVID as a part of supply chain diversification. Many others have gone as the first instance of investment into India without looking at the supply chain diversification. Defense technology, we are completely on it, but there are some constitutional issues in Japan, wherein through which the defense technology and defense products exports will have to be looked at. So we are waiting for easing of those restrictions which are put by the Constitution. If at all that happens, then I would say that our defense technology collaboration, export from Japan to India, from India to Japan, defense technology collaboration in third countries, everything will start taking shape.
Thank you, Ambassador. Just one point I'd like to just add. You raised quantum technologies, and I think India in its last budget allocated about $1.1 billion to be spent through the Department of Science and Technology just on quantum technology over the 5 years. So I think in addition to artificial intelligence, what you said, machine learning, blockchain, quantum. I think even as a country, I think we are directionally, like what you mentioned, government is indicating that this is an area, or these are strong areas, in which India would like to develop its capacity, capability when it comes to the world. And I think a large opportunity for India and Japan again to do more together. And my next question is here from Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, and of course he's thanking you for your wonderful comments. But he also wants, the question is like, could you share your thoughts on the present status of AAGC? Then the second part is Japan's investment in the improvement of India's Northeast infrastructure, the India-Japan cooperation in developing East Colombo Port, India-Japan cooperation in Bangladesh, and much is spoken about the Chinese investments in India's startup industry, but not so much about Japanese investment, although that is substantial. While you did, Ambassador, talk about some specific companies and funds that have invested, maybe you can elaborate a little more on that. So I think if you can take these questions.
There's quite a mouthful. On quantum technology, just coming back, in fact, there are collaborations which are already underway between Indian academics and Japanese academics, because at this point of time, we are not looking at the product. We are looking at the research which could lead to a product. As far as Japan is concerned, in quantum technology, they have gone ahead with possible creation of cybersecurity tools, largely encryption tools. And that is something which I would like to think that we will also be able to have collaboration on. And believe me, the amount that you mentioned in 5 years on quantum tech is peanuts. If you look at one quantum technology facility to be created, it takes close to $1 billion. So, therefore, we need much more, and much more will have to come from sources other than the government. Only then a collaborative program can move ahead. Good morning, sir, Ambassador Sajanhar. In the northeastern part of India, there are many projects which are going on. At the moment, JICA has close to 77 projects in India, which are active. Others are already closed. And out of these 77 projects, there would be certainly close to, I don't recall offhand, but close to 15 to 17 of them being executed in the northeastern part of India. As all of us very well know that Japan is a co-chair of ACTIST Forum, with India. And they are paying a lot of attention in development of Northeast India, along with the connectivity with the Northeast India's periphery. So Bangladesh is very much included there. There are road projects on both sides. There are rail projects on both sides. There are a few other projects under discussion. I may not be able to talk about it now. With Bangladesh and India and Japan would try to look into it. There are other discussions going on in third countries other than Bangladesh, but to the east of India. As far as Sri Lanka is concerned, the port investment was called off. It is called back again. So I'll not be able to comment much because I don't have real-time information on that. But my understanding is that both of us are moving forward in Colombo on the port side. As far as Japanese investments in India is concerned, well, Japan is the fourth largest investor in India as on today. It used to be third largest. So Netherlands has overtaken. But with Japan, what happens is that the flow of investment, you will find more or less remains close to the average value of investment over past decade or so. So we can expect Japan to keep investing in India. All the major Japanese companies, all are already present in India. Now it is the time to draw the SMEs of Japan into India. Now, to get SME from any country to any country is very difficult. But nevertheless, the sort of our initiatives in that direction is on, and some of them have already gone into India. Many of them are unable to due to the language issues, due to the issue of their own capacity in going international and global. They are unable to go. So Japan is today fourth largest investor in India. Japan has invested close to $15 billion in Indian startups. Close to 100 plus startups have been invested by Japanese VCs and VC arms of Japanese companies, which is only going to increase in the near future, considering the type of talent pool that we have. But at the same time, what we have to remember is that we have talent pool, yes, but Japan also has its own talent pool. And therefore, there is more need of partnership. And I took name of only two startups, but there are many others, Varma and Grey Orange. They have worked on both sides. The robotics products have been developed on the basis of partially the research done in Japan and partially the research done in India. Same thing with fintech. So we have to look at real partnership rather than quid pro quo relationship between any two countries. I hope, sir, I was able to give you some response.
I think great points covered there, and just moving on to the next questions, what's the Japanese interest in Indian agriculture and how do we boost, the Indian agriculture economy? And another question from Shribani Roy Chaudhary is there any talk between India and Japan to initiate a forum for discussion on the Indo-Pacific specifically? And then, then I'll have a last set of questions from Vishnu Prakash after that.
Agriculture is a great topic of interest of both sides. Japanese agricultural practices are efficient and some of them are replicable in India. But many of them are so expensive that India is probably not at the right stage of deploying it because finally it will have to be deployed by our farmers. As far as research is concerned, it can go at the research level. But if it comes to the farmers, are they ready to deploy tools which are millions of dollars in its cost? So we have to look at both sides. Tools are available, but are the tools deployable in India or replicable in India? That's another thought which we need to think about. Connected with agriculture is agri-value chain and food processing. There again, Japan is a world leader, and it includes packaging industry as well. Is a world leader. Many of the Japanese companies are already in India on this account. And some of them are talking to their future potential partners. Some of them have already set up their industry. They look a lot at the green technologies, they look at a lot at the sustainable technologies. So both of these are a part of the agricultural outreach towards India. There are new technologies of irrigation, which takes even lesser water than the drip irrigation technologies that we have today. So all these things will come into play. Some of them will come first as pilot projects, as demonstration projects. And once they are found to be replicable in India and suitable to the cost that our farmers are ready to offer, buy at, these will be deployed in India. As far as the Indo-Pacific discussions are concerned, they are done on a daily basis. Indo-Pacific is a concept, it's a vision. Indo-Pacific is not a club, it's not a group, it's an inclusive platform. So every single day you talk of a technology, you talk of Indo-Pacific. When we say spatial, strategic, and global partnership, spatial strategic is Indo-Pacific. And therefore, day in and day out, it doesn't matter whether you talk of culture, you talk of strategical convergence, you talk of geopolitics, you talk of technologies. These are very much a part of anything which happens. So they are very much there. It is not always that press release will be taken out on such discussions, but just believe that it is an underlying feature of most of the government-to-government discussions, including think tank to think tank discussions.
I think that's on top of the mind, as you rightly said, of governments around. And Ambassador, we'll end with this last set of two questions from, Vishnu Prakash. He says one question, the first part is that lots of reports, a bit contradictory at times, about the high-speed train project. What is the actual status? And then the last question is, India-Japan ties are on a roll. Has the Suga administration indicated any new priorities or emphasis?
Good morning, sir. On Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railways, a number of contracts have already been finalized. Some of them have been awarded. So project is very much on the roll. As far as funding is concerned, they are very much available. There are some technical issues which our technical experts are trying to resolve. All these are resolvable issues, and therefore we are very confident that Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway project is on. Time frame will become a bit skewed because the project itself has started a little late as compared to what was earlier stipulated. Please remember that it is a huge project undertaking. It's the largest infrastructure project that India has ever undertaken. It's the largest infrastructure project that Japan has ever undertaken outside Japan. If you look at the Shinkansen, which is the high-speed railway's name in Japan, the first Shinkansen, which was created in Japan before the last Olympics, first Olympics held in Tokyo Olympics, it was 10 years delayed. So even in Japan, it was delayed. So there will be some delays, but as far as the project itself is concerned, it is very much online. It is going ahead. The contracts have been finalized. Some have been awarded. There are some technical issues which are being discussed between the two technical teams of India and Japan. As far as Suga administration is concerned, Prime Minister Suga has not changed his priorities on the foreign policy as compared to what it was during former Prime Minister Abe's time. We have to remember that Prime Minister Suga was Chief Cabinet Secretary to Prime Minister Abe's cabinet. And therefore, he was in know of all the foreign relations aspects of that administration to which he agreed. And therefore, it is being continued even now, and it will keep continuing. What we have to also remember is that India is a strategic partner to Japan as well. It is not only that Japan is a strategic partner to India, it is both ways. And therefore, we will not foresee any disruption between this partnership, either from the Japanese side, nor from the Indian side. And that should move ahead as per the expectations. The speed sometimes may become a bit slower due to COVID-19. As soon as the COVID-19 situation has improved, you will find it moving much faster. Thank you.
on a very high point here, and with your thing that this relationship can be accelerated from where we are today. I think in a post-COVID world, the potential for what India and Japan can do is only going to be a lot more. And I think, Ambassador Varma, you've been so articulate, so insightful, very knowledgeable, and we've had a 65-minute conversation, and I know we can go on probably for another hour. There's just so much to cover, and to be covered with so much of optimism in what this relationship has the potential to become, and really move from government to government, as we said, people to people, business to business, society to society, and really, see this one relationship explode and flower beyond what we have discussed today. And I think I'll just, end with the fact that, if we continue your terms of co-creation, co-innovation, co-production, co-success, whatever that term means, is imminent, right? And I think, success, again, is how we evaluate success from individual aspects. As India, how we would look at success in this relationship, as Japan, how we would look at success in this relationship. But I think most importantly, how India and Japan can look at success in a global context, and really, see how we can make a meaningful difference together for the world. Once again, Ambassador, thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining this session, and for some very insightful questions. And hope we've been able to, give you a great hour of thinking, further work to do. And I think the only thing that will, talk of success of this is if we can go back and do a lot more to strengthen whatever we are doing between our two countries. So again, thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining the session.